Hey guys, welcome to my first episode. I'm here today with my lovely wife, Emily.
Hello.
And today we're going to cover the topic that college is overglorified, or the pursuit of college can be overglorified. And what are your thoughts on that? Just that initial statement.
Over glorification.
Yeah,
I think
of going to college.
to an extent, because sometimes individuals who think that, if this person goes to college, they're like the best of the best. Which in reality, I feel like you don't have to go to school just to be a smart person. So when I think of over glorification, I think it's whenever people perceive that those who go to school are better, but I don't think that's always the case.
Along with that point, I have to agree that most people who obtain a degree are immediately put on a pedestal. Although it is a great accomplishment, no doubt about that, it is a great accomplishment to, commit such and such time, whether it be 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, or if you're a doctor, 12, 15, 30 years. It is a great accomplishment. However, it does not always exactly translate to being a great person or super intelligent individual. I think obtaining a degree, I feel like, is a better measurement of commitment, whether especially on the 2-year degree side or the 4-year degree side. If you're pursuing something like that, it's a better measurement of commitment to a goal.
I think so too. Commitment and like perseverance. I don't think it translates to knowledge 100% of the time.
Oh yeah, I know some.
Right. So
not
that's
so smart people.
right. So that's
not
what
so smart people.
it goes back to my statement where I say that those who go to school doesn't necessarily mean like they're the best of the best or like they're the smartest.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to go to school just to be educated.
I agree. So, in the idea that college is overglorified, the reason I say that is because, and I pulled some statistics too, right? Here it says 41% of degree earners are underemployed. Along with that, 71% of millennials report that they're not even, or 71% of millennials report that they have a degree. So in terms of the generational people, like the Gen Xers or the baby boomers or millennials or Gen Z even, millennials are the ones that report being the most educated or have the most degrees. But along with that, 71% of millennials reporting having a degree, 38% of them report that they're not even using their degree. So that's almost 40% of people saying that they don't even use their college degree.
And I think that kind of goes back, I think, you can tell me if statistics shows differently, but I feel like because at that time we were told that, if you go to school, like you have no choice but to go to school. Going to school is for a better future, having a better career, which is true because then you get more opportunity and you get more recognition and
gives you a better chance.
Right, to get a better job. And so with that mindset, I feel like millennials are the ones who go to school because they had no other choice or they were told to go to school. And at that point, going to school was over glorified.
Right.
And then now they come out and they're like, I don't know what to do with my degree. And then they get a job that doesn't need their degree, but they're loving it.
Yeah. So my theory along with that is, that it was pushed so heavily on the millennial generation because the ones who pursued it in the 80s and the 90s, they came out with a solid job. And so, hey, look, this is the way to go. So parents who found success in it in the 80s and 90s are telling their kids, 90s and beyond, to be like, hey, I went to college. It worked for me. I have a solid job. You should go to college too. Whatever you pursue, go. You'll be okay. But, times change. That necessarily wasn't the case afterwards, right? And so going back to the other statistic I told you about earlier, 41% of degree earners, and this is across all generations, 41% of degree earners are underemployed. And what that essentially means is underemployment means you have a degree, but you're not working in that specific degree or that field related to your degree, or you're just working a job completely outside of your degree, right? So that's what underemployment means. You have this status here, but in reality, you're working at this level here.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
No. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too. Although I feel like college is over glorified, there's still very many ways of making a decent living. And you know, the first thing that comes to my mind is trade jobs. You can be working in construction, plumbing, electrician, HVAC, flooring, whatever stuff, like blue collar jobs, stuff like that, and still make a very decent living despite not having a degree. So, I mean, do you know of any friends or family that specifically have told you about their trade jobs where they make a decent living?
Not specifically trade job, but I think about like us, for instance, or for you.
Yeah.
Like you in a school, you got your master's degree, but you're definitely not doing anything in that field no more. So it's not a bad thing. I just feel like you just found a better way of using your talent and your skills to do what you want as a living. And maybe school just wasn't the right thing. But I feel like even when you go to school, you get so much different experience, and you wouldn't be the person you are now because you learned so much going to school.
Without that school experience.
What do you mean?
Like, I wouldn't be who I am
if you had not gone to school.
If I had
right.
not pursued education
right.
like that.
So school it's not like a have to, but it is good. Do you have perks that you wanted to talk about, like why school is good and what you can get from going to college?
Yeah, and so some of the benefits of me pursuing school was it made me more goal oriented. I chose to surround myself with people that were more intelligent than I was, and had a higher, like they were more driven than I was too. So they were more intelligent, they were more driven, they were more goal oriented. And when I did that, I surrounded myself around those kind of people. It kind of, put me in a different mindset. It set me up to be a better individual overall. Versus, if you're pursuing college for for simplicity purposes, let's say you're pursuing college because you want to get away from home, or you just want to go party or something like that. I think that's a very bad way or very bad idea or reason. I feel like it's a very bad reason to go to college, because college is expensive, and so you can spend upwards of like $10,000 a year just to go to college. And if you're just going to college to party, stay home. Stay home. Save your $10,000 a year.
Right. So the perks of going to college is, like you said, you're surrounded in an environment, in a setting where people are hustling, people are wanting to work towards their degree. Right. So when you surround yourself with those people, then of course you're going to do better. And then at the same time, opportunities and internship, those are the stuff that you're not going to get if you're not a student. Like, unfortunately, if you're not a grad student or a college student and you go and ask to shadow someone, or that internship and preceptorship is not there for you if you're not a student. So going to school does give you the exposure and the experience that's needed.
It opens doors for you that weren't necessarily there living as a regular individual in your small town, right? Unless you are an absolute hustler and you just go like door to door to, like, let's say you're doing a trade job and you need the internship or the experience. Unless you're an absolute hustler and you're going around door to door to like construction companies or electricians and plumber companies and asking them for internships or experience, right? However, at the school setting, you can just go to, it's like a one-stop shop. You can go to your guidance counselor or advisor, your school advisor, and they can just lead you. Oh yeah, you're interested in this, go this route, So
if you get a good advisor.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and there's a lot of behind the scenes information that you need to know prior to going and getting a good advisor, but try to find a good advisor to help you. But
so going back to the over-glorification, right? So we've been stating so many things of why school is so good. So why are we saying it's over-glorified? I think it's like we said, it's over-glorified because you don't have to go to school. So yes, we're stating like the benefits and the perks of going to school, but at the end, you don't have to. It's just those opportunities you're not going to get. But you can still be very talented and very good at your job if you didn't go to school. So now you want to talk about like the other side of school where technically it's not necessary?
What's not necessary?
Like school. How you're saying that you don't have to go to school. You can do something in the trade field. Right.
Before I want to get to that too, I want to cover a little bit more on these statistics of like the over-glorification side of it, and then I'll get into that. So remind me, don't let me forget that. But so some more statistics for you guys. The cost of tuition has pretty much gone from an average of 10,000 a year to about 30,000 a year, and that's the average across private and public universities. So since the 80s, around in the 80s, your cost of tuition was around 10,000 a year. In today's time, your average tuition will cost upwards of 30,000 a year. Again, this is across private and public universities, or even smaller colleges.
So what are you trying to say? So you're just saying that with school, tuition is just
It's just
skyrocketing,
it's
meaning
sky,
that if
pretty
you're
much.
yeah, meaning that if you don't need to go to school, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's so expensive.
Exactly, and don't feel like you have to go to school too because of that. So the cost of tuition has been on the rise. Well, conversely, not conversely, as a result of the cost of tuition being on the rise, you now as a student are in more debt, right? Some more statistics around the 90s. The average student debt in the 90s was only around about $10,000. So in the 90s, once you graduate, you come out of school, 4-year degree, whatever, you are only in $10,000 in debt, right? Compared to today's time, the average student debt right now is around $40,000. And so when you think about that, so here's a bigger picture, right? You go pursue a bachelor's degree, you accrue upwards of $40,000 in debt, and then what will happen is, let's say you get into a career that doesn't necessarily pay too well, and you're making like 35 to 40,000 a year. Well, now you're 40,000 in debt, barely making enough to pay back that student loan in time, right? Depends on how much you pay back too, but that kind of just sets you backward already. Hopefully you get into a career, or hopefully you get into a university where you don't get that much into debt, and also it's a high paying job or a great paying job. So those are some things to consider.
So you're just trying to illustrate to us that even though like the tuition is so expensive, so you kind of have to know what you're doing when you're in school, because if not, then you're gonna get an underpaid job, and then you're gonna be in debt. So you're just showing it, like telling us about the debt, right?
Yeah. So be aware of how much debt you're gonna go into prior to you pursuing college, right? So like, let's say high school folks, or or if you're a parent or individual looking to pursue college, know what you're gonna get yourself into. Let's say you want to go to, we're based in North Carolina, so let's say you want to go to UNC Charlotte. I don't know off the top of my head how much it costs, but let's say it's a 4-year degree, and at the end of it, you're gonna graduate with 40,000 in debt. Look into what that specific career would be paying you out at the end of your graduation, or once you land a job in that career or that field. What does that job pay you, and how much debt are you going into? And if it makes sense to you, then go pursue it, right? Just don't blindly say, yeah, I want to go pursue this degree at this super high prestigious university. Like, let's say you want to go to Duke University or NC State, and it's much more expensive, even the cost of living, because it's in Raleigh. So the cost of living, your tuition included. At the end of that 4 years, what kind of debt are you going to look to have, and then what would you be making coming out? What would you be making coming out with that degree, and you're working in that field? So make it make sense to you.
And like Wilson said, as long as you're okay with that, if you see that your future salary is not where you want it to be, and it's not going to be able to pay your debt in a timely manner, but you're okay with it because you love your job, then I feel like that's okay.
So I wanted to talk to you guys about a interesting fact that I found. There's an article written by the New York Times that had talked about an event that happened all across the U.S. During 2021. It was called the Great Resignation. And what that talks about is the fact that 40 million people in 2021 quit their jobs. And I would imagine among those 41 million or 40 million were individuals that had degrees and stuff too, and probably left. I mean, what do you feel like their reason for leaving their jobs for?
No, I was going to ask, did the article not tell you like what they thought, or like?
Yeah, no, there were multiple reasons that were listed, and some of them I just wanted to
my
hear
idea?
your thoughts. What do you think are
Okay.
some of the reasons that people would have quit so heavily
Sometimes,
in
so
2021?
in 2021, that was kind of in the midst of the pandemic. So sometimes it could have been like parents who needed to watch their kids because now it's like online learning,
Yeah.
right? And they can't pay for childcare. So someone had to quit and watch the kids. Healthcare providers, nurses, being understaffed, underpaid, workload has been, very overwhelming.
So you think nurses and physicians were leaving their jobs
I
and roles
think
as well?
I think so for sure. What else? Yeah, those are the two that I can think of. What did the article say?
Yeah, so I didn't read a ton in depth into the article, but some of the reasons why they were quitting was because they were unhappy with their job already.
Job satisfaction.
Yeah, job satisfaction whenever, in the wake of COVID, obviously in 2021, we were still kind of in the middle of the pandemic. People were quitting because they're just like, the workload was already getting worse and they hated their job anyway. So I think that gave them an opportunity to be like, hey, look, man, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to pursue a different career. And, I think what the pandemic did was pretty much gave majority of the U.S. and the world a reset for them to be able to look at different opportunities and see what they could be doing with their life instead.
And I feel like you're like a prime example of that as well. I think
I am.
when individuals were furloughed and the pandemic had happened, everyone kind of shut down. I think that did give us like a reset, like to do what you actually want, your
Yeah.
hobby, your interests.
Yeah. So just an interesting piece of statistic there. I just wanted to share that with y'all and comment and talk below to see if and let us know what your story is. Were you one of those individuals among the 40 some million people that quit their job and went to a different field or just looked for a different position during the pandemic? So that Great Resignation was a pretty interesting event that happened all across the U.S. I'm sure it was worldwide too. I'm sure it happened worldwide.
Part of Wilson's podcast or video, he wanted to kind of include different clips of definitions, daily advice, life advice, just to kind of better yourself or better the viewers or listeners. So in this segment, he wanted to go ahead and tell you guys the definition of accrue. We've used it in a couple times at the beginning of this clip. So just to ensure that everyone kind of understands what this word means, he's going to share you guys what the definition is.
The actual definition. So the definition of accrue, it's a verb, so it's an action. To accumulate or receive such as payments. So earlier in the example, I had talked about accruing debt, right? And that just means, you were given this amount of debt. You were obtaining this amount of debt. So to accumulate. So over the lifetime of you pursuing college, you will accrue $40,000, $50,000 in debt. So that's an example of that.
And the word accumulate means just to like gather or to obtain. So that's what that means.
To obtain, to stack, whatever, however you want to use it.
Yeah, so that's the word of the day.
I encourage you guys to do your own little research too, so accrue, accumulate, various definitions and vocabulary. All right, moving on, we wanted to recap a little bit about the pros and cons of going to college, right? More likely the cons of it, because this episode is the over-glorification of pursuing the college education, right? So to recap, it's more of a area of caution. If you are going to pursue a college degree, know what you're getting yourself into, know how much debt you're going into, and know how much that career is going to be paying you coming out of it, right? Too often I've heard of individuals that will pursue college and just pursue it to pursue it and not really know or plan ahead. So just as an area of caution, make sure you're doing your planning.
But that's okay too. So let's say you want to go to school just to go to school because you love learning, but you have to understand that you're going to be in debt unless you got some financial support somewhere else.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of know where you're putting yourself whenever you're going to school. Like by all means, those who go to school are not dumb, they're not dumb for going to school. They're just using their resources because we both went to school. I don't regret it.
Yeah.
Do you regret it?
I don't regret it either.
Right.
Don't get us wrong. Going to school and being around motivated individuals is not a bad thing, right? You just have to make proper use of your time if you are going to pursue school. For example, like careers like physicians, nurses, architects, engineers, people like that. Those specific careers, they require you to have a degree, right? Rightfully so. You don't want some uneducated person, acting to be a nurse or a physician, if they don't have the proper certification or the degrees and the licensure. And in order to obtain all of those, you have to go to college. So we're not saying that people who go to school are should be frowned upon, but for the most part, just be educated in your pursuit of college prior to going to college.
I think the bulk of this video is just to kind of share and talk about our opinion of going to school and the college experience, because I don't regret it. It was a great experience. I learned a lot, especially in the healthcare field. You have a lot to learn, like you said, physicians and nurses, those occupations. But those who go to school just to go to school, I think it's fine, as long as, like you said, they understand the debt that they're going to accrue. But at the same time, if your future profession doesn't require you to go to school, there's no need. There's, maybe months or semesters of just certifications. You don't have to do the whole 4 year. So we're just saying, as graduate students, as college graduates, it's not a bad thing to go to school. It's just, if it's not necessary and you can make the same from your, the profession that you're wanting to go to by just doing a certification or a licensure, then do that route, because in the end, you're going to get the same amount, right? And so just going to school or going to college doesn't make you a better person.
No, not at all. I've known people to have pretty notorious degrees, or like let's say they have a master's or doctorates or PhD, and that's a very prestigious degree to have, but them as an individual was they were very egotistical, or they felt like because they had this status they were better than everybody else, and those and you can have poor characteristics and have all those degrees. Or, conversely, you can also have, no degrees and be a great individual, or a great balance of both. You can be a great individual and have all these degrees, right? So, that's just something to consider too. Don't feel like, people who have degrees are immediately, known to be intelligent people or great people or thoughtful people,
So, basically, in brief, going to school doesn't make you or make that individual
a better person,
or like the best person. So don't think that just because you don't go to school or you don't go to college that you're below them, because you're not.
Right. Yeah. Overall, being an educated individual is gonna make you a great person overall, and that doesn't mean being educated meaning you have a degree. Being educated means you're well versed in a particular subject. Let's say if you're going to purchase a vehicle and you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, with or without a degree. If you're an educated individual about multiple scenarios, then that's still winning. You're still in a great position. So whatever you are going to be pursuing, be educated in that. Let's say you are a bank teller. I don't believe a bank teller, you have to have a degree to be a bank teller. But,
I don't know the education requirement for that.
Right, but let's say if you're a bank teller, and you learn that business and you're an absolute killer in the industry, then all right, well, you're still educated in that career, in that field, right? Although you may not have a degree, you're still doing very well. And if if you're working in a field where it doesn't require a degree, or you do have a degree and you're working in a particular field, the ultimate picture, the big picture is if you're happy with it. Some people, like for me in particular, I loved my job with sports medicine. I loved it. It's just that the pay wasn't necessarily what I was hoping that it would be with a bachelor's and a master's and 5 years of experience.
It's still a growing profession, though.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it was a young profession. It's a growing profession, so the pay and the salary wasn't necessarily there in terms of what I was hoping to get out of it, right? And so that's what didn't match up or align for me. So I decided to leave, and I felt like I could do more with my time. So as long as you are happy with where you are, then that's perfectly fine. People like structure too, right? So if you go, people, sometimes you'll hear people talk about, oh man, I just got tired of working that 9 to 5 life. Well, 9 to 5 Monday through Friday is very structured, and some people like structure like that, and that's perfectly fine. They're happy with where they are. They, let's say they make whatever amount they make, and if that's enough for them, then so be it, right? And so if you're going to pursue whatever degree or college, if at the end of it you have 100,000 in debt and you're making like 30,000-40,000 a year, and you're happy though, then okay, that's fine. And that's what we're ultimately wanting our end message to be. We're throwing in areas of caution. Watch out for this. Watch out for this. But if you're still happy with where you are, then I think that's what matters the most.
Yeah, I think in the end, it's just our opinion is that if there's another route to get to the end goal of what you're wanting without having to go to school, then you shouldn't, because you're going to be in debt, and there's a college is not a have to. You might have that title, that you own a degree, but in the end, you're going to have the same salary as another person who may have gone a different route and ended up with the same profession as you and didn't have the college degree and didn't have that debt. So as long as you like what you're doing,
right?
Yeah, and we're just saying choose the route that will be less in debt, and it doesn't have to be school.
Right. Yeah, and one of the other biggest deciding factors for me to leave the sports medicine profession was because with my background, I 5 years experience working as an athletic trainer, and at a bachelor's and a master's, even with all of those accolades, that's another word to look up, accolades, my parents were still making more than I was, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. My parents, and that's where I feel like it was over-glorified, right? You obtain all these degrees and you have all this work experience, and my parents over here with no degrees are making more money than I am. And I'm just like, man, doesn't sit right with me. Other people, it's probably fine to other people. But for me, I just like, it just didn't make sense for me. So I do still miss the profession. I still wish I was practicing it. But, in terms of the monetary compensation, it just wasn't there for me. So I decided to leave.
That's something I disagree with you in that statement, but we can talk about that later if you want.
And what's the disagreement?
Oh, that, like, even though if I don't make enough as someone who didn't go to school, I feel like as long as I enjoy what I'm doing, then I'm okay. But that's just our view of money, right? Of financial needs and desire. So I'm okay with that. And it doesn't make me feel like I'm a bad person or that like I wasted my time.
Right. So that's the prime example.
Preference.
She would be happy in that situation, but for me, personal preference, I was feeling like I could commit my time to doing something else. So that's the route that I went. So that's did you have anything else to add? I mean, that I feel like we pretty much covered all the topics I wanted to cover.
Okay. And I felt
like it was a productive conversation.
I just wanted to recap on the over-glorification and that you don't have to go to school to do well in the world.
Yeah.
You learn a lot, but you don't have to.
In the pursuit of college, you learn a lot. I think the another big message to understand is you are who you hang out around with. So let's say if I was to choose to go to pursue college and just hang out with a lot of people that partied all the time or just had no real goals and just kept skipping class, if I hung out around those people, I think I would definitely become one of them as well too. But I knew what I wanted to get out of college, and I just kept that goal in mind and just kept chasing that goal. And so overall, I chose to hang around people that were smarter than me, that were, had critical thinking skills, leadership skills. I hung around those kind of people, and they kind of propelled me in a direction that I wanted to be in. So remember that too. You are who you hang around with.
Yeah.
Anything
Sounds
else?
good. No, that's it. That's all I had to share too.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Share this message or this video with all of your friends and family. Follow the social media pages. I'll have them listed in the description or wherever you may find the links. I'll have it listed below. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you.